Okay, welcome everyone to this fourth and last Conservation Connector. This is a new series that Prairie State Conservation Coalition started this year, and we look forward to organizing at least four, possibly more programs in the new year. So stay tuned about what the subject matter will be. And we really look forward to today. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on introductions because I want to get to the good stuff. And of course, you received the invitation, so you're able to read about our speakers. But we've got our lineup is Zena Cruz with Alpha Kappa Alpha, and she's going to be also speaking about the programs they're working with Donna Doherty. And then we're going to swing over to Pete Jackson with Friends of Hackmatack National Wildlife Refuge, and Kaina Gonzalez, who works for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. So we will start off with Zena, and I am Cynthia with the Prairie State Conservation Coalition. And here we go. Zena, I look forward to your sharing your stories about what you've been up to in your neck of the woods in Illinois.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much, Cynthia. Thank you all for having me here. I'm really excited to be able to share just our program and what our organization is doing. As Cynthia said, I'm Zena Cruz, and I am the president of the St. Clair County, Illinois graduate chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. And just briefly, what many people don't know about the African American fraternities and sororities, we have a different organizational structure. I know many of my friends that were in non-African American fraternities and sororities, they did Rush. It was primarily an undergraduate endeavor. And after that, they may have contributed to the Alumni Association to help at the undergraduate level. We are called the Divine Nine. There are 5 African American fraternities and 4 African American sororities. And we actually have extended our service to what we call graduate chapter levels. And so after we graduate from undergraduate school, we can join a local graduate chapter, and it functions like a not-for-profit organization. It's a community service organization, and our motto is service to all mankind. And we have our international president is Danette Anthony Reed. And with her platform, which is Soaring to Greater Heights in Service and Sisterhood, she has initiatives that she is promoting and that we promote through her administration. They include strengthening our sisterhood, empowering our families, building our economic wealth, enhancing our environment, advocating for social justice, and uplifting our local community. And it is through one of these initiatives that we were able to have what we call pink and green space. If you can't tell from the background, pink and green are our colors, apple green and salmon pink. And with our collaboration with the St. Clair County Green Space Foundation, they had this beautifully raised area where we could plant trees, and I'll tell you a little bit about that, but we called it the Pink and Green Space as the name of our collaboration. At any rate, we were charged with planting trees. In fact, if I could share with you the overview of the initiative, we will employ select strategies to optimize our collective ability and to improve and protect the environment at scale. We will prioritize activities that promote the adoption of more sustainable and responsible practices. And in that regard, it includes planting trees, community and home gardens, waste reduction, and shredding and electronic cycling. So we partnership on the international level with the Arbor Foundation, and we purchased trees, and we got the Shadlow serviceberry trees. And I've known Donna Doherty with the St. Clair County Green Space Foundation from when my kids were little in the school district. And I always remembered her passion for environment, for garden, for the green space. And we needed a place to plant these trees. So we reached out to her. We walked through the beautiful green space. It was just awe-inspiring to just be there and be in nature. And just honestly, from a cultural perspective, that is just not something when we sit around the table and talk that we really have appreciated over time. And so it was releasing as we walked through the space. And then we found, she took us to an area where the property had been raised and it was open. The sun was just beaming down. It was picturesque and it seemed to be perfect for us. And so as a chapter, we all got together one Saturday. We ordered the trees, we got the trees, they were seedlings. And none of us knew anything about planting trees, not a thing. So everybody's on Googling everything. And we actually were able to get, because who had all the tools, right? Who has wrappings for trees? Who has that? Well, you all might. We don't have it. So we were able to partner with Lowe's and Home Depot. They donated all the items we needed, from gardening gloves, shovels, the netting to go around the base of the tree. They gave us practically everything that we needed. And so that was exciting. And I probably, for me, one of the greatest aspects of the project is its multi-generational effect. It was something we could not have planned. So we spent all day, I guess we started around 7 early in the morning. We previously had the area mowed, and we plotted out the space for the 12 trees. We did our research to see how much space needed to be between each seedling so that it could grow uninhibited. We learned about the ground space for our area. And that was really interesting. And actually, even Donna taught us and told us about the coal that is below the surface fairly heavily and deeply in our area. And so we did our research to see, will this work for the serviceberry trees, and what, if anything, additional we needed to be prepared for. We called, who is that, 811, to make sure that we could dig. And we got that all set up because we knew a home had been there. So we expected there could be lines underground or piping. And so we made sure we called and we got clearance from them. They came and marked off the space. So we got there that morning and we invited our youth. We have a young girls youth group from junior high through high school. And that is what I refer to as the multi-generational aspect. We've been able to talk to them. Only a couple were able to come out that day, but since then we've been able to talk to them about it, show them where it is and what we did. And it was sort of an educational moment. Who knew that there would be anyone interested in trees until a few of the girls literally wanted to go over to the trees. They wanted to see how we did it. They wanted to know, can we plant trees? Can we help next time? And so just it sparks an interest in a community that traditionally may not go into that area. Just as a side story, I remember we took our children to the NCAA museum in Indianapolis. And my daughter saw this tree with this leaf. Oh, it was huge. It had to be 12 to 14 inches in diameter. And she says, I think I want to study trees. And I'm thinking, well, who is it, an arborist? Who studies trees? So that spurred us to find out about a dendrologist. Never heard of a dendrologist. But these are the types of interests that started being sparked in our young girls. And also it took them away from this and the video games. It was a moment in space and in time without electronics. And they were looking around, and to my chagrin, I couldn't really tell them what the other trees all around. I know Donna and I talked about it, and Donna, you pointed out what some of the trees were in the background, and I was like, yeah, I don't know, but you know what? Let's find out, because we're going to spend some more time out here. So it's a teachable moment. It's a moment to get them away from electronics and the TV. And then for the elderly, my mom is our oldest member, and she really couldn't do any digging. She helped quite a bit, but she took it on to water them. So it gave her a moment to get out of the house. It gave her something to do. She took such pleasure in filling up 12-gallon jugs. She wouldn't, don't throw those jugs away. I need them to water the trees. But that was her way of participating. It's her way of giving back. It's her way of taking care, of nurturing. And so it just, again, it was a benefit that we could not have planned. And then for those of us who are adults in between youth and seniors, although I'm probably a senior, at least on the cusp, the mental health aspects of it. We talked about just being out there, breathing. The air was just different in that space. The feeling of the dirt in our hands was different. You felt a connection. It was almost spiritual, it was awe-inspiring. And so we've talked about that. We talked about just going out there. I don't know, when I was little, we would have class outside sometimes. And we talked about like having just a social event where we just go out and just sit out there, maybe have some snacks and not be encumbered by electronics, by our phones, by folks having to call in or being on a meeting or a webinar. And just to even sit in the silence, because the silence was golden. It sounded beautiful. It was peaceful. It was us. It was nature. It was whatever we had to bring, nails and all. We had no issue getting down in the dirt, planting trees, learning about planting trees. We had fun. We took pictures with pink and green pom-poms around the trees. And it was a moment that we couldn't have planned if we tried, because we just didn't know. And I'm particularly excited because of our youth group, these African American children who they don't necessarily have any financial issues. It's not that they all come from a poor or neglected area, but just generally in our culture, when we talk about environmental issues and aspects of life, it has not been high on the list of priorities. You know, we deal so much with, the disintegration of the family. We deal so much with financial deficiencies and food insecurities. This was just a great way to do what our international president wants us to do, which is to remember this environment. If it's not taken care of, all these babies that we're wanting to have and to want them to enjoy life, they won't be able to. There are no trees. They're not going to be able to. And so we have over 120,000 members. We are across the world, primarily in the United States. And every year, she wants us planting trees. And the fact that I just had a few of my babies talking about, can we help next time? Can we help next time? It just made me feel so good. It made me feel hopeful about just the community getting engaged and getting connected on the level of the environment, on the level of sustenance and maintaining our earth for our present and our future. It's a great project. We're looking forward. We're already now starting to think of what do we need to do in April. My mother is like, well, it's cold, so I can't get out there. So she's waiting for spring to break so that she can get back out there to water those trees. She goes all by herself, loads up, it gets her exercise. She's carrying, these gallon jugs. It's not a hill, but there's just a little walk. So just the benefits of the program, it can't even put in words, because it had those consequential benefits that we just could not have planned ourselves.
Zena, thank you so much. And this conversation around connecting to other humans too, while you're over nature and being outside of the health benefits is so huge.
It is.
understanding those priorities also in
Right.
our various
Absolutely.
communities. So one of the things that I really hope to bring out in this session together is the partnering aspect, and working along with Donna, because what I hope is that this workshop can serve as an example to the other organizations who are here on who to partner with in their communities, because I
Right.
know AKA has chapters around the
Yes.
state. So
Yes.
that's something that we'd love to learn a little bit more about, and you and Donna can go into that now.
Absolutely.
Swing over to Donna if you want to add anything about how your partnership, Donna, took place. Like, how did you guys get together? Oh, you're on mute.
You're on mute.
The famous Zoom words.
Right?
Right?
Right. We need a t-shirt. You're on mute.
Okay.
I'm sure they exist.
So Paris Patterson, one of Zena's sorority sisters, phone called one day, and I was just so surprised. It just kind of like knocked my socks off. But it was just like a couple minutes we talked, and she told me all about her sorority and that they're like Zena talked about their mission, and so like in an instant, I went like it had me. I was just, and we got together. We took a hike around Bluff Park, and that was amazing, amazing. And then the other thing, remember Zena, when we went out to plant the trees, and one of the ladies in your chapter, she talked about how blessed we are to be out there under the sky, and
Yes.
she just gave the best little. It was so uplifting.
She's a psychiatrist,
It
and
was.
she gave some wonderful words.
What was another thing that like we could never have planned?
Right. Right.
It was wonderful. And then the other thing, Zena's mom is an amazing role model. Like she got out there and she made it kind of a lot of fun. And also how we take care of the trees and the little ones that were there. I think she kind of like roped them all into why we, like here we are on this earth and taking care of it. And
Right.
she's real soft spoken, but she had their attention and she got down on her hands and knees, and
She did.
yeah,
80 years old.
it was an amazing day. And that they would call the Green Space Foundation, that was just I'm so happy that we got together.
So are we.
And I was so happy when I took my Southern Illinois trip and stopped with you and we met. And and then I, found that there's a chapter in Carbondale. So there's opportunity there.
Yes.
So maybe you can take a few minutes before we move on to our next segment, Zena, and just talk about the chapters and where they are in the state.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we can work on maybe partnering those chapters with other land trusts and other organizations.
We are in the central region of Alpha Kappa Alpha, and Illinois is one of the bigger and most populated states of chapters. We have chapters from Cairo and Carbondale up to the border of Illinois and Wisconsin. And so we are sprinkled about Peoria, Champaign, Bloomington, of course, Chicago. There are probably 15 chapters in Chicago, Rock Island. Goodness, I don't know a space that is not within a close vicinity that there isn't a chapter, and it's sometimes more than one. And so we are sprinkled throughout and always looking for these types of opportunities. It's not something that we would ordinarily think of. Again, we talk about just the cultural aspects of collaborations that we would normally do. This is a breath of fresh air, pun intended, just being out there. And I just remembered Donna, and I remembered our neighborhood is Signal Hill neighborhood, and I loved my kids' experience And it just came to me. I'm thinking, you know what about the Green Space Foundation? And that's how Paris Patterson was the chairman of the project. And she's young. Paris is she's, gosh, probably 30, early 30s. And she took it on. She made the phone call. I said, do you need me to call her? She goes, nope, I got it. I said, okay, just make sure you say this. And it sounds like she did what she was supposed to do. And I said, just tell her who we are, because everyone doesn't understand when they hear fraternity or sorority, they think undergraduate, they think college, and sort of explain to them that this is in fact, we are the first African-American sorority chartered in the United States. And just explain who we are and what we're doing just as an organization. And it just worked well. So Cairo has a chapter. Again, Carbondale, St. Louis is just across the river. But in Illinois, moving further up, Springfield. There may be one in Jacksonville, but if not, Springfield is right there. Peoria, Champaign, and everything I-80 and up, we're full up there.
This is wonderful. And I look forward to continuing to connect with
So do I.
with you and Donna as the model.
Yes.
So and just a little teaser that Zena will be speaking at our conference in March at Starved Rock
Yes.
State Park. So
Looking forward to it.
Yes. Well, thank you both. And now we'll hear from Pete Jackson, who will talk to us about Conversación de Conservación and how that got off the ground, so to speak. And then our speaker, Kaina, will follow Pete. And then we'll have time for some questions. Go ahead, Pete.
All right. Sorry about the momentary delay. Hi, everybody. I'm Pete Jackson, and I'm on the board of Friends of Hackmatack National Wildlife Refuge, which is a nonprofit set up to support the establishment and growth of the Hackmatack Refuge, which is fairly new. It was established in 2012, and the goal is to grow the refuge to more than 11,000 acres. And you're looking at a map with the footprint of the refuge. It's primarily going to be developed in northern McHenry County, Illinois, and southern Walworth County, Wisconsin. And it generally encompasses much of the Nippersink Creek watershed. That's the state line you see there up towards the top. In late 2018, a board member, as a board member with the Friends of Hackmatack, I started looking into what were some of our underserved communities? Who were we not reaching? And visitor surveys conducted on national wildlife refuges were showing that 96% of refuge visitors were Caucasian, while most population growth in the US is among minorities. Indeed, McHenry County is seeing a shift toward a more diverse population. Between 2010 and 2020, the white population was down 11%, while the Latino population was up 32.5%, and the Black population was up almost as much. And as of 2020, the overall population of McHenry County was more than 13% Latinos. Unfortunately, we are not seeing a commensurate increase in recorded visits by Latinos or other non-whites on the refuge. At the suggestion of a fellow board member, I began reaching out to other conservation and environmental organizations in McHenry County, specifically the McHenry County Conservation District, the Land Conservancy of McHenry County, and the Environmental Defenders of McHenry County, to see what their experience and interest level were regarding the Latino communities of our county, given the large percentage of the population that was made up of Latinos. I learned that the McHenry County Conservation District had gone to great lengths to reach out to Latinos previously, but had met with limited success to that point. I also learned that none of the conservation organizations had been able to engage with the Latino communities as much as they would like, and all shared a high level of interest in connecting with the Latino population. Further, we all agreed then rather than each organization going out and knocking on doors individually, that a collaborative approach was likely to be more productive and less confusing to our targeted audience. So we decided to form an informal collaborative, which we call Conversación de Conservación, or CDC for short. And it came together in the year 2019. So here you see at the top our, I guess, mission statement: collaboration between local conservation organizations and Latino community leaders who are interested in helping local Latina people connect with the many places, projects, and opportunities in McHenry County related to conservation and the environment. But we needed partners within the Latino community. Cynthia, who was then the executive director with the Environmental Defenders, had a connection with Hispanic Connections of Woodstock, and she arranged for us to meet with them at one of their board meetings. This partnership gave us our initial connection with the Latino communities, and we went on to plan several events with Hispanic Connections, including a Latino bus tour of conservation sites, a Latino picnic, and tabling at the festive Mexican Independence Day in Woodstock. A few years later, we connected with the Youth and Family Center of McHenry County, and the Youth and Family Center is a nonprofit that provides support to Latino families. We've had much success planting pollinator gardens with Youth and Family Center kids as part of their summer programming, and also jointly sponsoring various other events, such as Latino picnics and such. The essence of Say de Say's approach is to recognize that different people see and experience nature in different ways, and to ask the community what types of nature activities would they like to see? How would they prefer to experience nature? And with that, I would like to turn things over to Cayena Gonzalez, who we were fortunate enough to bring in with a grant secured by Cynthia at the Defenders, and who has been very successful in providing Say de Say with outreach to the Latino communities. Cayena now works for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, but she still helps out with Say de Say when she can. Cayena?
So my name is Cayena Gonzalez, and I'll be talking about my experience as an intern with Say de Say. So I graduated in May of 2022 from the University of Illinois at Chicago, where I majored in biology with an end goal of working in conservation. After graduation, I returned home to McHenry County and began a paid internship um, that focused on outreach efforts for Say de Say. And it was through a Say de Say event the prior summer, so at their first Latino Conservation Week picnic that Pete had mentioned, that I discovered who Say de Say was, their mission, the various groups involved, the people. So that's where I was able to meet Cynthia and Pete. So it was really exciting to be interning with them a year later. And for those of you who haven't heard of Latino Conservation Week, I actually hadn't heard of it either prior to the Say de Say picnic. But it's basically a week-long event, the third week of July, where organizations throughout the US hold events that aim to get more Latinos outdoors and in activities that protect our natural resources. So these can be events such as guided hikes, film screenings, picnics, and more. You can see on the screen that I screenshot a few events to give you an example of the various types of events that were held by organizations this year. And again, they're held all throughout the United States. So some of these were in Wisconsin, California, Florida, Illinois. In Milwaukee this year, they did a week-long number of events during this week-long Latino Conservation Week, where they did things like tacos and trails. You can see that one's on the screen. They did one that was pájaros y pan, which translates to birds and bread, or more specifically, it's talking about like sweet Mexican like pastry bread. And so they were just different examples of the different kinds of events that can be put on during Latino Conservation Week, bilingual events, bird walks, art events, learning to kayak, all different kinds of things that you can see. And you can actually find all these events on Latino Conservation Week's website. Okay, so as I was saying, you can check out all these different kinds of events that happen this year on Latino Conservation Week's website. And that can give you an idea if you were interested in putting on events like this, different kinds of events that are possible, as well as if you were also to have a Latino Conservation Week event, you could post it on here for others to find. So that is actually something that I did, as I will be talking about my internship with Say de Say and my main duty, which was to do outreach for the second annual Conservation Week picnic that they did. So upfront, I am not an outreach specialist, but a few things that made me successful in this role was being bilingual, having Latino heritage, being from the area, and of course, having a passion for conservation. So all of this gave me a good grasp on what I needed to do to reach other Latinos in the community. So the first thing I did was create a flyer in English and Spanish for print and to be shared on social media. I, again, not an outreach specialist, so I was using a tool called Canva that I have found super user-friendly graphic design tool that I always recommend to people creating this kind of content. Um, but anyways, the print and the social media flyer was shared widely, but it was also shared strategically. So um, it was shared in places such as local Mexican businesses like grocery stores, ice cream shops, Facebook groups. And one of the most memorable places was when I stopped by a church that holds a Spanish mass, and I asked if I could leave flyers, of this Latino Conservation Week picnic that we had coming up. And I actually ended up speaking with the priest. I told him about our event and its purpose, and he let me leave flyers, as well as saying that he would include this in his announcements of the next mass. So I thought that was really cool to, when you go out into the community and you really explain, what you're doing, why you're doing it. And clearly it was enough for him to be excited enough about it to not just let me leave flyers, but to also share it in his announcements. Um, so besides the outreach component of this picnic, the picnic was hosted in an area of the county with a large Latino population to make it as accessible as possible. There was live music. So we had mariachi, a local Latina business for food. We had a short bilingual guided hike. Each representative of the groups in CDC did a short introduction and just invited people to get involved and take advantage of the various opportunities there are to get outside, the different conservation districts available to them within the county. I think we ended up tripling or doubling the amount of people that came to the picnic the second year, just with these added like outreach um, the ways that we approached the outreach in the second year versus the first year. We really got a lot of people out compared to the first one, I think. And as I was going around talking to people at this picnic and I was asking them, they were sharing with me, one, that this was their first time at the conservation district site. Some of them, it was both their first time at this conservation district site within the county and at a conservation district site in general. So that was like a 2-in-1, which was really exciting. And at the picnic, we had a bunch of, brochures and maps and just different resources they could take home to keep finding out about all the different places that they can explore and the different activities there are at each of these conservation district sites or with the different groups that make up CDC. So outside of the event, I was also present at other community events just as a representative of CDC, like tabling at a sustainability conference that they host at the local community college, creating Spanish flyers for the Friends of Hackmatack for their restoration days, tabling at the Mexican Independence celebration. So the outreach, this Latino Conservation Week picnic was my main duty with the outreach efforts, but it kind of extended into a few other things. And so just a few reflections. I feel really fortunate to have been living in a community with a strong conservation network, especially one that saw a gap in representation based off the community, as Pete had explained, and actually chose to take action and do work to bridge it. This is something that organizations can do, take a look around at who's showing up to your volunteer days, who's showing up to your events. Is it representative of the community? If not, why? Like, what are the barriers? What can you do? Are there organizations of the demographic that are doing related work that you can partner with? So it definitely, takes time to build those authentic relationships, but it's important to try to do it and to be present and consistent. And I think I was really lucky with CDC being in the community that I grew up in, especially at a time when I was figuring out my own conservation journey. Because I really didn't have that in high school or even right after high school. It definitely took me time to get into this space. And so I would say that CDC's efforts for me, at least, were definitely successful. I think we were definitely like a perfect match. And I think it just goes to show that, you know, CDC's mission of like uplifting Latinos in conservation, like really made a difference for me. Like I feel that I was uplifted. I felt that during my internship, and just being connected with CDC brought me a greater, you know, network within my community of conservation. Um, it just really allowed me to grow, and I'm happy that even though I've moved on and I'm in the current job I have now, I'm still able to participate and still join calls like this and still just have them in my network. So I really believe that this collaborative truly paid off, at least for me. So thank you. And I'm gonna bounce it back to Pete to share some final thoughts.
And thanks, Kayana. Before you do that, I have to say you're very modest in those numbers from picnic to picnic, because since I was executive director of the Defenders, I know exactly what the numbers were. It was 12 people at our first picnic. We
Okay,
brought
so it was
Kayana
like
on, and we had 70, and I think I cried.
so it was more than doubled or tripled. I
Yeah.
clearly can't, yeah, I have this bad sense of numbers and
It
people,
was
but yeah,
it was an amazing
there was a lot of
example.
people.
Yes, such an amazing example of having a you having a Kayana, the Kayana factor, going to the communities where you're from to engage with those communities, rather than me trying to do that, which is what I tried to do the year before. And also to have that spirit of partnership and with all of those groups. So in the various communities here, for the folks on this call today, kind of think about what are those groups in your communities. I know Champaign has a sizable Latino community, Latino leadership or something. That would be a great to partner with if you're in the Champaign-Urbana area. And you know, so it's just, you can't go wrong when you reach out, and not to say, hey, we're doing this, come over here. Go there, find out what's going on and what the needs and the talents are. Okay, Pete, thank you.
This is sort of a lessons learned list of points that can be boiled down, I think, from a longer presentation that Kai and I actually did previously. But these are some things that we've learned and are still in many cases working on. Definitely, we haven't figured everything out, but number one, first and foremost, listen to the community. What opportunities can be identified to better serve them? Don't assume you know what community members want or need. The second point is to find partners within the community and give them a leadership role. Third, focus on identifying barriers to participation and how these can be addressed. Fourth, think outside the bounds of your usual program offerings. Fifth, be willing to go into the community to meet with people and offer events in their space where they may feel more comfortable. And finally, diversify your outreach and programming efforts by employing and engaging folks who may make your target audience feel more welcome. So those are the things that have jumped out at me, and Kayana touched on some of these, and some of these have been hard lessons. Some of them we have a lot of work ahead. This is not an easy puzzle to solve. It's hard work, and we just have to keep going. It's just an ongoing thing. We've had some successes along the way, but people change jobs and partners come and go, and you just have to keep looking for connections in the community.
Thanks, Pete. So we've got a nice amount of time, 15 minutes. I'm really hopeful that you know, we can hear some stories from those out there. You feel free to, we're a small group, or 20 people. If you want to come off camera, if you're comfortable, and certainly off mute, and just don't even raise your hand. Just go ahead and Whoever wants to share to go off mute. And I think one of the things we really would like to learn is who out on this meeting today are doing something that's similar, and what stories do you have about working with diversity in your communities, and how did those
If I-
things come about?
If I might, while they're thinking about
there's
that,
something
if I could
pleasing,
share,
yeah.
I really want to encourage you to approach the underrepresented communities. It may feel it's not in your comfort zone, or you may feel that there is no interest, but a lot of times the lack of interest is because of a lack of knowledge. And everyone, regardless of the communities we're in, are always looking to expand and to grow and to learn about the impact. It's about impact. What impact is what we do having on the environment, on our lives? How can our lives be enriched? And the conservationism is an area that the lack of interest is more about the lack of knowledge about it, and the lack of understanding and appreciation of what the trees being in existence means. And so I would just encourage you to just be bold, be bold. And I would absolutely say any of the 9 African-American fraternities and sororities who are all across the nation, definitely across this state, we all have started initiatives about conservation, about environment. Even after our current president is out of office, for example, we get a new international president, we have decided that our collaboration with St. Clair County Green Space is something we as a chapter want to maintain and keep going, no matter if the next president has an environmental initiative. We see how important it is. And so we want this partnership to grow, to expand. I was listening to the presentations about Say They Say, and just got inspired thinking, what am I going to call Donna and bug her about? I remember her taking me to a gazebo. So Donna, my brain is spinning now. And I just like to invite the other, use the 1 or 2 organizations that you may connect with to connect with others and expand that network. But please, just be bold, take a deep breath, and just approach the organizations, even though it may feel uncomfortable, or you may just think, oh, they're not interested. It's really more about not knowing than not being interested.
Thank you, Zena. Does anybody want to share from their neck of the woods on this topic? You can raise your hand or come off mute. Gary, you're off mute. Are you sharing?
I can. Well, I have a couple different angles. So,
and let us know where you're from and your organization.
I live in Elgin, and my main organization is Friends of the Fox River, and we would like to represent everybody that lives in the watershed. And we know that we're not, but we have we have not strongly moved forward with that initiative. We're just, busy doing other things, but realize we should go in that direction. We keep thinking that working with children from a very diverse demographic, that we're going to get introduced to their families, and it's just not happening. And one valuable thing I got from this session is we have to make an opportunity for that to happen. Many moons ago, I heard this idea and thought it was great, but never moved forward. And it came about with the State Department of Natural Resources wanting people to buy fishing licenses so that they could fund their program. And so the technique was used to go through kids to their parents that fished and invite them to this party. And so at this party, the DNR reps talked about fish, and why it's so important to have a fishing license, etc. And then they had a bunch of fish, and they had a chef come in and explain different ways to fillet them. And then they had a taco party, and it was highly successful. So this idea of, as Pete pointed out, engaging folks with, well, maybe he didn't say it that way, but in an experience that will be comfortable for them, not what you just normally do. At the charter school I'm with, it's very demographically diverse, and we have lots of parent involvement. So it is happening there, and it's just easy. It's not this challenge, I think, that I'll just say I envision somehow. And then we are working with a group in Elgin called River Life, which are working on a redevelopment project downtown along the river, and working to engage the greater community. And so I just recently made a contact with one of their leaders. She was a teacher, but she just is going into Latino activism. So she offered to work with us. So I'm excited to go forward with that. And there was one more thing that just evaporated. Somebody else can talk, and if it comes to me, I'll come back to it.
Thanks for sharing, Gary. That's awesome. Anybody else, Kyla?
Yeah, I was going to add, so I'm with the Conservation Foundation, and we have been doing a lot of work in this area over the last few years. The role that I'm in as Community Engagement Coordinator was developed partially to support being more impactful in the communities that we serve. And so we've expanded as an organization our capacity around this work in a number of ways. And I think one thing over the past year that has been nice to see is I think we were looking at what are some of the other organizations that are out there that intersect with our work. And so one partnership has been with Outdoor Afro, their Chicago Northwest Indiana chapter. And Outdoor Afro is basically, it's a volunteer-led organization that comes around supporting Black leadership and connections out in nature. And so it seemed like that would be a great organization to just, to potentially partner with. And through 2023, one thing that came out is just really an interest in gardening, which we've been doing more programming and events around, because there does seem to be a lot of interest in that. And so we did a 4-part gardening series throughout 2023, and we'll continue a partnership with them in 2024. But another example too is like Faith in Place, and reaching out to places of worship with that nature connection as well. There's another group in Chicago called Out in Nature. And so really looking is kind of a starting place too for those organizations that have that overlap with the conservation and environmental piece. Has been a kind of a great area for us to get some momentum going. I did have a quick question for Zena, just with the Black sororities and fraternities. I know obviously, like with the grad chapters, there is there's always like that community service focus of those organizations. And so do you see there also just being opportunity for conservation organizations to potentially find partnership around some of those community service pieces too?
I absolutely do. In fact, when they were, was it Kaina? I don't want to mispronounce her name, who I just love the presentation, was talking about the Latino Conservation Week. I thought, I bet I could get together with some of the other Black fraternities and sororities and have a conservation week just locally. I looked to see if we had a national one. I didn't see one, but approaching the Divine Nine is what we call it, them about getting together for a conservation week in the area that you're in, I think would be an example of ways that you can do that. But I certainly do. And we have youth groups, most of us do, and they could, one of your sort of spins, if you will, on the partnership is giving their youth groups an opportunity to literally get their hands dirty and step away from the computer screen and the television screen. So I absolutely do see some possibility there.
Thank you.
Okay, and Gary's got his hand up. It came back to you, huh? If you want to unmute and share.
This is really an important place to get younger people involved. So because of the era that I grew up and the isolation that I had culturally, and opportunities of privilege, maybe I should put it that way. We don't really see, okay, I'm not saying that very well. I'll give you an example. We took 26 kids canoeing. None of them had ever been in a canoe, and 24 of them had never been on the water in any kind of craft. And I grew up, almost everybody had a canoe or access to a canoe, and that's not the situation. And now kayaking is very popular, but it's out of bounds for families to rent when it's $39 an hour. And so some of the things we just take for granted aren't those opportunities. Fishing, the same way. A lot of people fish. I met a grandmother, had her kids fishing this year on a school holiday. She was taken over and the kids were using sticks with fishing line and aluminum can for the reel.
My grandmother taught us how to fish that way.
Yep. But we're dealing with some young parents now that also never had outdoor experiences.
Right.
And
exactly.
So at any rate, it's very valuable, and I appreciate the presentations today. It's something I'm working on, and it was very helpful to me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gary. Yeah, I like that Kaina's experience was not only benefited the organizations she was working with, but also her own career path. So Kaina now is up in the Green Bay area working for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and that's very exciting. And having that opportunity, it's really important that we engage young people and then give them some ideas and support as they're searching out their careers in conservation, because I think that there are more than ever now, and they're more important than ever now, I believe. Well, we've got 1 minute left. Any last thoughts on winding things up? Allison, take it away.
I just wanted to say I'm with the Conservation Foundation, and I really appreciated the presentations today. I thought they were really wonderfully put together and great sort of case studies. I think a few things that we've learned in our process is making sure that we're really looking at what are all the assets that these communities may bring. And, I'm thinking of that grandmother who's, fishing with a tin can, and just the resourcefulness and the things that come around that. And just making sure that we frame and understand what are the assets and the different ways of connecting to nature that may look different than the ones that some of us grew up with. And so I appreciated that story, Gary, as well. The other thing that's been really important to us has been making sure that we don't sort of form a partnership and then go super public and sort of, we've been very sensitive that we don't want to come across as bragging about any of it. And we've sort of waited for our partners to tell us and give us the lead on when they're ready for us to talk more about the things that we're doing with folks who look different than your traditional what conservation has looked like historically. And I think that's been really important too, so that none of the actions that we're taking come across as tokenizing. I'm really excited to hear more about this, and I'm just, for TCF staff on here, I'm gonna try to lobby that we get to do a McHenry County field trip to meet with you guys directly and learn a little bit more. So thank you, Cynthia, and everyone for this great workshop.
Allison, thanks for your comments and for being on, especially that last one. And I keep thinking about accessibility came up a few times in the presentations over the last hour, used in different ways. And also I think of patience, that it takes time to get to know our communities, especially when we're talking about reaching out to and reaching into the diversity that exists in our communities. And it's having a statement on your website that says you're practicing diversity and equity and inclusion is one thing. I'm all for having a statement after decades of making it happen, because it's that partnership and the time that it takes, the patience. It's real grassroots, and it doesn't happen overnight. So Allison, I appreciate that very much, and I appreciate our speakers so much, Zena, Kaina, especially for sharing your stories. We've been thinking about this for a long time and working toward it. And thank you for a very special afternoon. And we look forward to more at PSCC's conference in March. And I give you all a humongous hug because I'm the hugger.
Thank you so much for having me. I have so enjoyed being here, and I'm looking forward to PSCC.
Thank you. Oh, and Zena, you're going to stay on with me because we got to talk.
Right.
See,
Right.
we're working. So
Right.
if anybody is inspired by this, please let me know. If you need some connecting with Zena, with the chapters, the AKA chapters, that is PSCC's job, is to serve our coalition of members, and I'm more than happy to help connect that and help build partnerships.